is also important of this life. We talked about the Sabbath, when each of the three religions sort of have their own day. Muslims it's Friday, Jews it's Saturday, Christians it's Sunday, and it generally runs from sundown to sundown the day before that. So for Muslims it would be sundown Thursday to sundown Friday, for Jews sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, and for Christians it used to be sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. But many of us don't really practice the sundown to sundown part, except for Jews. So if you're an Orthodox Jew, you know exactly what's on Friday and going into Saturday. And it's still a pretty important part of their religion. There's really no good reason to get into circumcision and having discussions about comparative circumcision policy. Way too much for me. I will leave it at that.
So for the difference between tithing and zakah, you're talking about like how zakah is based on wealth and tithing.
Yeah. So which one's based upon wealth versus income and how much?
All right.
Okay. Again, fasting, they all have it. Pilgrimages, they generally all have a version of it. Obviously, the Hajj being a pillar of Islam is a much bigger thing. But I mean, devout Catholics in particular, but Christians as well. There's a lot of different pilgrimages out there. Did I give the example in Bolivia? Yeah. So every summer in southern Bolivia, in the city of Cochabamba, I did give it to Syria. We're trying to figure out the name.
I think so.
I don't know, whatever it was. If you go to northern Spain, there's this pilgrimage route where you go hiking on these trails and it brings you from one monastery or convent to another. And, over the summer, observant Catholics make this pilgrimage all the time, and they will stay and camp out at one monastery or convent and then walk to the next one. The whole trail is like, I want to say like 100 kilometers or something like that. I haven't looked at it in a while. But there's, at least in Catholicism, there's many, many other ones. Many people will do a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to go trace the Stations of the Cross, right? And we'll walk the Stations of the Cross in Jerusalem.
2.5% what?
Lastly, religious leaders. These are just words you need to be familiar with, okay? A religious leader in Judaism is called a rabbi, okay? In fact, particularly since you guys live in North Jersey, knowing what a rabbi is critically important. And you may, at some point in time, actually get a job and hear the term, have you found yourself a rabbi yet? And what the phrase means is, have you found yourself a mentor in the organization? Someone who can, point out the political issues and what to avoid and how to do certain things. In fact, like Law and Order and a bunch of the cop shows that are filmed out in New York use that term all the time in the show. So you might hear it at some point in time. It's actually like a slang expression. But a rabbi is a Jewish religious leader. Obviously, here we're all very familiar with the role of priests, okay? And priests have different titles, right? We got priests, monks are a little separate, but you also have things like, monsignors and bishops and archbishops and cardinals and popes. In other Christian denominations, they'll use not the priest titles per se, but you'll hear about pastors, ministers, reverends, okay? I don't know, anyone come up with any other ones from there? What?
Deacons?
Deacons has a specific meaning in Catholicism. In other Christian denominations, it's used slightly differently, right? So in the non-Catholic context, same deal as a deacon.
Bishop of a couple churches, but it's not like a Catholic bishop. Just
Correct.
All the churches.
Correct. Yeah. So deacon and bishop in non-Catholic churches have a slightly different meaning. In the Catholic Church, a deacon is a lay person, a person who is not a member of the clergy or a priest, who has gone through a specific amount of training and is allowed to perform certain roles that the priest does, but is not allowed to consecrate the Eucharist.
Wait, so what are those like? What video of a guy blessing Muslim mothers so people jump.
Yeah, so my guess is they don't actually say it, but he would be, we'll hit it next year, an imam. So the head of a,
10%.
the head of a, local Muslim equivalent of a church, okay, would be an imam, okay? A Islamic scholar, someone who interprets Islamic law, is known as a mufti. M-U-F-T-I, mufti. Do you ever think the white guy is going to be teaching Islam?
I have a question. I didn't look it up to ask him.
What? Oh, you forget it? Yeah. Yeah. I did a minor in it in college. So.
I have a question. Why you listening to us like you were asking the board? Because I don't understand it. So I ask
Mufti?
understand it.
Yeah. It's someone who interprets
So
it
you want to
Islamic
come there and
law.
ask, or you want to ask me after class, or you want to
Both.
listen?
What?
I do a CD.
I think it's M-O-U-T-F-I.
So, like I said, imams are the equivalent of like a priest, but within the context of Islam. And so if you meet someone who is introduced to you as Imam so-and-so, you know what their role is. Or Rabbi so-and-so, you know what their
So
role
that's
is.
their name for each of these into
No, it's not like the Pope who takes on a new name. Is that what you're asking? No,
Pope Leo's first
they'll
name
keep
Pope?
their original name. It's just like a doctor. It's a title.
Honestly, bro, that's a great question.
Well, Father
That's a
Bernard,
different type of
didn't necessarily treat me.
That's a great question.
I'm gonna hold up
You don't
for
have
today.
class, Ken? Kevin.
So father is the equivalent of doctor. It's a title or honorific that's put in front of the name. Imam would be the same thing.
You got kicked out.
When you call someone Pastor
For what?
Mark, right, it's the same thing, it's an honorific.
So like when you're the Pope, like your first name, like
Sorry?
this is like when you're the Pope, like Pope Leo, for example, his first name is Leo.
Back in the day, I don't know, no, they fully changed it even way back then. That's why there's like 30 Pope Leos.
I was making sure, 'cause I didn't know if Pope became your first name and then you was Leo, or is it like you like so like some Star Wars stuff where you like.
No, they actually take on a full new
Star
name.
Wars, yeah.
That's what I'm
So,
saying.
like-
Like they get appointed, they have like Dart and then like some
Like
name.
Pope Francis isn't Pope Francis, he's Pope Francis of something.
Yeah. See, thank you, Star Wars. You know ball, not these niggas.
Lord? Yeah. It was a position of, status and significance in society. So my lord or something like that would be a general honorific, but you could have a specific title. You could be like a duke or a duchess, a baron, an earl. The English came up with lots of different titles that they use. I mean, my freshman year at Georgetown, I had a duchess who lived on the floor. I didn't call her duchess, but it was certainly cool to say it. Duchess? I don't know, she was somehow related to the Dutch monarchy.
You hit her up.
How far off she was, I don't know. But I mean, we had like at Georgetown, we had a number of people. Like we had a couple. We had one class of mine. I had one of the princesses from Saudi Arabia.
Huh?
Did you try to bag her?
Wow, I think I let him shot. The thought did cross my mind.
What about the Duchess? What about the Duchess though? What about the Duchess?
I was like, you go down to history for that one, right?
Did you have the other one?
No, and then I also had, she wasn't the princess, but she was in the Jordanian royal family as well.
Did you knock her?
Nah. So.
You keep missing these shots, boss.
That's 3 missed shots. You're not shooting well.
That's three free throws right there.
You're not shooting well, dude.
Free throws, really? I mean,
I think it was like
You know-
half court at least.
depending upon what school you, I mean, there's a lot of people who send their kids to, American colleges because of the reputation and the education and everything else. Do you know what OPEC is? Yeah.
Something?
OPEC.
Who's ever heard of OPEC?
I heard those.
Like you said.
Those two have nothing to do with each other.
Ozempic, yeah, so you never heard it. So OPEC stands for oil producing exporting countries,
Definitely.
okay? It is a cartel,
Oh.
okay? It was formed by the major oil producing countries led by Saudi Arabia. Where it comes into play was back in the 70s. OPEC was mad at the U.S. For their policy on Israel, and they issued an oil embargo, where they, said they weren't going to send oil to the U.S. anymore.
For like what, 30 days?
So right now, OPEC has, matured into a, more business-oriented group, and they make decisions on how much oil will be produced around the world by all OPEC members. Now, there is cheating, and there are non-OPEC members that produce a lot of oil and gas, but they are still highly, highly influential. So when I was at Georgetown, we had the head of OPEC's son was there, and it was rumored that he had like a $40,000 US a month spending budget.
Wait, say that?
$40,000 a month.
Not friends?
He was friends with all the basketball guys.
So he was a bucket.
He was friends with Allen Iverson and all those guys. Allen Iverson was in my class.
What the hell?
Yo, fuck! You can't actually mention that. What?
Wait, I thought Claude brought you here.
Like, I'm trying to figure it out. Like,
Show us right now.
Yo, like, oh, rare. Wait.
What?
I'm just spongy and they just have these fucking stories, bro.
He left right before the start of his senior year. So at the time,
Wait. He didn't go. Wait.
Did you just book fucking reality? He didn't
Yo,
go.
I swear
I
he
swear he
came
didn't go.
out of high school. What the fuck?
what are you talking about?
Cause what? He just fucking in reality.
Wait,
The thing is that he doesn't need practice, he doesn't need college, he can hoop.
it just says he went to Georgetown. What the fuck?
Oh, Allen Iverson?
Yes.
Yo, I swear.
You think I made it up?
Yes. No, he pre-planned that shit.
I'll even tell you how. So, he was such a hood back in the day that right before college, he actually got sent to jail for a fight at a bowling alley.
You just see Wikipedia just like upload.
He got sent to jail. I think it was a fight at a bowling alley. So the head coach of Georgetown, John Thompson, actually showed up before the court, convinced the judge to not send him to jail on the condition that he go to Georgetown and play basketball. So Allen Iverson shows up at Georgetown, and
Before he finishes his story.
he was definitely a hood back in the day. Like, it was rumored he carried a gun around on campus. He did eventually stop that. His number 2 at the time was this guy named Larry Page, and Larry Page was like an awesome number 2. Not good enough for the NBA. He went over to Europe to play ball afterwards. I sat in the student center one day, and all the basketball players, all the basketball players have people who go to class for them to take notes. So, like, you get hooked up with somebody at Georgetown, and for all the top athletes, they go to your classes, they take notes for you, they meet your teachers for you to get your homework assignments, and you're still supposed to go and attend, but they help you out. So I sat next to Larry Page and his tutor, and P-H-E-A, Larry Page. In fact, there's an article in the Washington Post about how he basically came back, he had washed out of the Europe NBA, became a drug dealer, lost a finger, like, was essentially out of the streets at this point in time.
Stop warping reality.
But my point was, he was doing an English class, and he had to read something about Shakespeare, and it was clear that he didn't know how to read.
Who, Allen Iverson?
No, Larry Page.
Oh.
Allen Iverson wasn't a ton better. I mean, remember Patrick Ewing?
Yeah.
He graduated Georgetown in '84.
I know.
And if you ever listen to, so he took Georgetown to win the NCAAs. And so if you listen to his victory speech, he still doesn't really know English.
He's not very good though.
Right?
He's Nigerian.
No, Ewing? Ewing's Haitian.
He's Haitian. He's Haitian in Jamaican.
Yeah.
Is he Haitian and Jamaican? I think.
He's Haitian.
No, I think he's Haitian.
Haitian? Yeah, it's Haitian because I remember in the movie they called him the Jamaican Sasquatch. I remember.
Anyway, Why do you keep telling me?
What?
Oh, I know.
Nigga, you literally bet the reason. Alex Iverson is Kobe fucking Bryant and LeBron James. None of them niggas went to college.
I'm fine
And
with
Kevin
this
Garnett.
idea.
None of them niggas went to college. But now all of a sudden, Allen Iverson went to Georgetown.
I swear I read somewhere. I definitely.
He was.
And then the story too
My
about
friend.
him. No, and then the story about him going to court and to be like, you gotta go to Georgetown. He just typically just looked that shit up. Oh yeah, he had to go to. No. You did something.
Wait,
That's
you
what
did
did something.
question? Wait, hold on. How many years is this person?
No, he was Jamaican.
He knows the owner of Wikipedia. He's actually
He went early to the NBA.
let's speak to the kids out for a
All
little.
right, last key point, and we're done with the slide deck. Jerusalem is clearly the holy place for all three of these religions. Okay, Islam, it's not just Jerusalem, but it's also Mecca and Medina.
Okay, I'm one.
And we know why. Where in Jerusalem is holy for Muslims?
The Rock.
The Dome of the Rock, also known as.
The place that Muhammad ascended.
Did Trey say
It has an Arabic name.
That's funny.
The Al.
The Al.
Aqsa Mosque.
Oh, it was Oxford.
Okay.
Aqsa
This
Mosque.
is because of somebody called out, it is where Muhammad ascended to heaven. Okay? And remember that ascension isn't physical, it's spiritual, because he died in Medina,
Yeah.
right?
His soul like flew over.
Yeah.
So, you know, it happens. And so this deck is over.
You said Al
We are
Mosque.
going to talk about the growth of Islam next. The deck,
What was the
slide
date?
deck
What was
is
the
up on the website.
It was like Al
Okay?
Mosque.
The growth of Islam is this very rapid expansion of Islam throughout the world.
What was the mosque name? Al.
Oxa.
Al-Aqsa.
Al.
Thank you, bro.
Fox, I will prove you wrong one day. I swear to God, you're gonna say something and we're gonna get you. Today might not be that day, but